My fiancé looked at me across the dinner table and said, "You need to stop telling people we're engaged. It makes me look desperate." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. The restaurant was loud, plates clinking, voices overlapping, but his words cut through all of it, sharp and deliberate. I blinked. "Good to know," I said calmly. What I didn't tell him was that those 3 words didn't just land in my ears. They landed in my chest, hard, cold, like a warning I couldn't unhear. That night, after I left his apartment, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for reassurance. Instead, I went home, lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and listened to the quiet questions in my head that had been whispering for weeks but had just started screaming. By 2 in the morning, I made a decision. While he slept peacefully, confident that I'd simply toned it down like he asked, I was already protecting myself, quietly, methodically. I paused every single wedding booking he thought was locked in. The venue, the photographer, the caterer, the florist. Nothing canceled outright. Just frozen, uncertain, waiting, just like he said he wanted. 2 nights later, at exactly 11:45, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, his best friend was standing there, mascara smudged, hands shaking, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. She didn't even say hello. She looked at me and said, "Listen, you need to know what she confessed in front of everyone tonight." That was the moment my stomach dropped. I'm 35 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I learned that sometimes the person you're planning to marry is quietly planning a completely different life behind your back. And when the truth finally comes out, it doesn't knock gently. It shows up at your door after midnight. I was 31 when I met him, at a mutual friend's summer barbecue that felt like every other casual weekend gathering until it wasn't. Someone handed me a drink, music played low in the background, and he walked over like we already shared history. Confident but not arrogant, charming in an effortless way. We talked for most of the afternoon, drifting from the grill to the patio, laughing about work frustrations and travel dreams. By the end of the night, exchanging numbers felt inevitable. We started dating exclusively within 2 months. Nothing dramatic, no games. It felt easy. He was ambitious, social, always talking about ideas and possibilities. I was steadier, more grounded, someone who preferred quiet dinners to crowded parties, early mornings to late nights. We joked that we balanced each other. I believed that. 4 years went by faster than I expected. We built routines. Weeknight takeout, weekend errands, vacations planned months in advance. He liked being the center of attention. I liked being the calm presence beside him. I didn't mind that he shined brighter in social settings. I thought relationships were about letting each other take turns. He proposed last October at my favorite restaurant, the same place where we'd had our first real date. Nothing flashy, no crowd, just the two of us, a ring he said he'd spent 3 months saving for, and a speech that made my throat tighten. I said yes without hesitation. I cried. He cried. I posted a photo within minutes, my hand shaking as I hit upload. The response was immediate. Friends flooded the comments. My family called within the hour. His parents were thrilled. Everything looked perfect from the outside. Wedding planning started in November. He let me take the lead, which I was fine with. I made spreadsheets, Pinterest boards, group chats with my bridesmaids. I handled details. He showed up when needed, signed checks, weighed in on colors and seating charts. We booked a September venue, a photographer, a caterer, a florist. Deposits went down. Dates were locked. But somewhere around February, small things started to shift. I noticed I wasn't wearing my engagement ring as often. At first, I told people it was because of work, that I didn't want to damage it. That was true, mostly, but part of me just didn't reach for it. I also became vague when people asked about wedding details. We're still figuring things out, I'd say, even though everything was already booked. At the time, I couldn't explain why. I just knew something felt off. And instead of confronting that feeling, I kept moving forward, hoping it would fade. It didn't. By late February, the tension wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself with arguments or slammed doors. It crept in quietly, through moments that felt too small to justify panic, but too frequent to ignore. He stopped asking about wedding details. At first, I told myself it was normal. Not everyone enjoys planning. When I'd mention timelines or vendors, he'd nod, distracted, scrolling on his phone, responding with vague sounds of agreement. "Whatever you think is best," he'd say. It sounded supportive, It felt like disengagement. Our social dynamic shifted too. When friends brought up the wedding, he'd redirect the conversation or joke it away. "We've got time," he'd say, smiling too quickly. If I filled in details, his expression would tighten for just a second before smoothing out again. I noticed it. I pretended I didn't. At home, things were different. Not colder, more distant. He stayed late at work more often. "Busy season," he explained. When I suggested date nights, he postponed. When I reached for his hand in public, he'd let me, but the warmth felt delayed, like he was catching up to a moment he hadn't chosen. I started questioning myself. Was I being sensitive? Overthinking? Planning stress does strange things to people. That's what I told myself while my body kept tallying the inconsistencies. Then there were the comments. One night, after dinner with friends, someone joked, "You two are next, can't wait for the wedding." He laughed and said, "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." Everyone chuckled. I did too. But the words echoed long after we got home. Another time, he said he didn't want to look like one of those couples who can't talk about anything else. I agreed, even though we barely talked about it at all. The biggest red flag wasn't a fight. It was the feeling that I was walking slightly behind him, matching his pace instead of my own, that I was adjusting, softening, shrinking conversations to keep him comfortable. When I asked him directly if he was okay, if the wedding felt overwhelming, he smiled and said, "I'm fine. You're reading into things." I wanted to believe him, but the unease stayed. It sat in my chest during quiet dinners. It surfaced when my phone buzzed, and I hoped it was him choosing me, not me checking in again. It grew stronger every time he asked for space without explaining what that meant. By the time we sat down with his college friends that Saturday night, I already knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong. That Saturday evening felt normal at first. Comfortable, familiar. We were at dinner with his college friends. The same group we'd spent countless nights with over the years. Jess, Madison, Claire. Laughter, shared stories, the easy rhythm of people who thought they knew each other well. I remember thinking for just a moment that maybe I'd been wrong, that maybe I'd imagined the distance, that maybe we were fine. Then the conversation drifted, inevitably, to the wedding. Jess smiled at me. "So, have you locked down the venue yet?" Before I could answer, he jumped in. "Yeah, it's this vineyard about an hour north, September 14th. I felt a small surge of relief, like maybe he was finally stepping back into this with me. But when I looked at him, his jaw was tight. "Marcus," he said quickly, forcing a smile, "we don't need to bore everyone with details." The table went quiet. "I'm not bored," Jess said. "I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this." "We're still figuring things out," he added, shooting me a look, a warning. Madison leaned forward. "Have you sent save the dates yet?" "Next month," I replied. "We're getting them designed now." That's when he set his fork down harder than necessary. "Can we talk about something else?" No laughter this time. No smooth transition. Just an awkward silence that wrapped itself around the table like fog. We finished dinner with surface-level conversation and left around 9. In the car, he didn't say a word. I watched the city lights blur past the window, my chest tight with things I didn't know how to name yet. When we got back to his apartment, the door barely closed behind us before he spoke. "You need to stop doing that." "Doing what?" I asked. "Telling everyone we're engaged, talking about the wedding like it's a done deal." I stared at him. "We are engaged. It is a done deal. We've put down deposits. Our families know." "I know," he said, rubbing his face, "but it makes me look desperate, like I'm this person who can't stop talking about getting married." The word hit me like a slap. "Desperate?" I repeated. "I'm just asking you to tone it down. Stop bringing it up every time we're with friends." "Your friends brought it up tonight," I said. "Not me." "And you jumped right in," he snapped. "It's like you're trying to lock me in." Something went cold in my chest. "Lock you in?" I said quietly. "You proposed. You said yes. You posted it online. You planned this wedding with me." He crossed his arms. "I just need some space around it." I looked at him for a long second, then nodded. "Good to know." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I hear you," I said. "I'll stop talking about it." Relief washed over his face. I left his apartment an hour later, drove home in silence, and lay awake until 2 in the morning. By then, I already knew. If he needed space from the engagement, I was going to give it to him. All of it. I didn't cry when I got home that night. That surprised me more than anything else. I lay on my bed, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the city outside my window. My phone sat face down on the nightstand. I didn't check it. I didn't want reassurance. I didn't want an apology. I wanted my thoughts to finish forming without interruption. The word he used kept replaying in my head. Desperate. Not sad, not confused, not overwhelmed. Desperate. I thought about every time I'd defended our relationship to friends, every time I'd smoothed over his disengagement, every time I'd reassured myself that love meant patience, that commitment meant compromise. By 2 in the morning, something inside me went very still, and in that stillness I made a decision. Sunday morning, I didn't confront him. I didn't ask for clarification. I didn't demand reassurance. Instead, I opened my laptop and started making calls. The venue first. I explained calmly that there were unforeseen circumstances and asked about postponement policies. They told me I could pause the booking for 60 days without penalty. I paused it. Then the photographer. Same story. 30-day hold. Caterer. Florist. DJ. One by one, every booking was placed in limbo. Not canceled. Just waiting. Uncertain. Exactly like the commitment he seemed uncomfortable claiming out loud. By Sunday afternoon, he texted me, "Hey, sorry about last night. I was stressed. Want to grab lunch tomorrow?" I stared at the message longer than I should have. "Can't tomorrow," I replied, swamped with work. Rain check. "Sure, love you." "You too." I didn't feel guilty. I felt numb, like my emotions had stepped back to observe rather than participate. Monday and Tuesday passed quietly. We texted like normal, light, surface level. He didn't mention the wedding. Neither did I. It was like we were both pretending something hadn't cracked. Wednesday evening he called. "I'm having drinks with the girls on Friday," he said. "Jess's place. You're welcome to come." "I'll pass," I said. "You have fun." "You sure? They'd love to see you." "I've got some stuff to catch up on." "Okay, love you." "Love you too." When I hung up, my chest felt hollow. Not because I missed him, but because I realized how easy it had become for both of us to step back. Friday night came. I stayed home, watching shows I'd been putting off, trying not to check the time. At 11:45, my doorbell rang. And in that moment, everything I'd been quietly bracing for finally arrived. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her at first. Claire stood there in the hallway light, mascara smudged beneath red, swollen eyes, her hair pulled back like she'd done it in a rush. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together to keep them still. "I'm so sorry to show up like this," she said, her voice already breaking. "I didn't know where else to go." My stomach tightened. "Claire, what's going on? Come in." The moment she stepped inside, I knew this wasn't about a fight or drunken drama. This was heavier. The kind of heavy that sinks straight into your bones. I poured her a glass of water. She barely touched it. "Listen," she said, staring down at her hands. "You need to know what she confessed tonight, in front of all of us." The room felt suddenly too quiet. "Confessed what?" I asked, even though something inside me already knew. "We were at Jess's place," she said. "Me, Jess, Madison, and him. We were drinking, talking, laughing. Everything was normal until Madison brought up the wedding again. She asked if the dress was finalized." Claire swallowed hard. "And that's when he broke down." "Broke down how?" My voice sounded distant, like it wasn't mine. "He started crying," she said, like really crying, saying he didn't know if he wanted to get married, that he felt trapped, that everything was moving too fast. I felt the blood drain from my face. "And then," Claire continued, her words coming faster now, "he admitted he's been seeing someone else." The world tilted. "He's been seeing a woman from his office," she said. "Her name is Derek's wife. No, sorry. Her name is Natalie. She's married, and it started in January, right after you booked the venue." I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. "He said he didn't mean for it to happen," Claire went on, tears spilling now. "That she made him feel free. That with you, everything felt like expectations and timelines." My hands were cold. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. "Madison asked him why he didn't just break up with you," Claire said. "And he said he wasn't sure he loved you anymore, that he loved you but wasn't in love with you, that he was scared to call off the wedding because of what people would think." I stared at the wall behind her, trying to process each sentence. "So, he's been stringing me along," I said slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "And I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I didn't know if it was my place. Tonight, I couldn't keep it to myself anymore." I took a shaky breath. "Does the woman know about me?" Claire shook her head. "He told her he was single." "Of course he did." Claire reached across the couch and squeezed my hand. "You don't deserve this. You're a good woman." "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly. "I mean that." She left around 12:30. I locked the door behind her and stood there in the dark for a long time, not moving, not crying, just breathing. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't confused anymore. I was done waiting. The house felt unfamiliar after Claire left. Too quiet, too still. Like the walls were waiting for me to react, and I was refusing to give them anything. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with the lights off, watching the city glow fade and return through the window as hours passed. Every now and then, my phone would buzz with a notification from some app or group chat, and my body would tense, expecting his name. It never came. By morning, the shock had worn off, and what replaced it wasn't anger. It was grief. Not just for the relationship, but for the version of myself who had believed so completely. The woman who trusted timelines, who thought commitment meant safety, who assumed that if someone proposed, planned a wedding, involved families, they were choosing you fully. I replayed every moment from the past few months, this time without excuses. The way he pulled away when the wedding came up, the way he flinched at details, the way he asked for space without defining it, the comment about looking desperate. It all made sense now, painful sense. What hurt the most wasn't that he cheated. It was that he let me keep planning a life he had already started abandoning. I took a shower and stood under the water far longer than necessary, letting it run over my shoulders while my thoughts spiraled. I wondered how long I would have kept going if Claire hadn't shown up. How long I would have kept adjusting, shrinking, quieting myself to make him comfortable. I sat on the bathroom floor afterward, wrapped in a towel, hands trembling, and finally let myself cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady tears sliding down as my chest tightened with the realization that the future I'd been working toward no longer existed. There was a moment, right there on the floor, when I almost reached for my phone to call him. Almost. I wanted answers. I wanted to hear him say my name. I wanted him to explain how he could plan a wedding while sleeping with someone else. I wanted him to choose me, finally, decisively, the way I had chosen him for 4 years. That urge scared me. Because it wasn't about love anymore. It was about wanting the pain to stop, wanting clarity, wanting control over a situation that had slipped out of my hands without my consent. I put the phone face down. If I called him in that moment, I knew I'd accept whatever crumbs he offered just to avoid sitting with the truth. And the truth was this. He had already made his choice. I just hadn't been informed. By late morning, exhaustion settled in, the kind that makes your limbs feel heavy, your thoughts slow. I made coffee and forgot to drink it. I stared at the paused wedding folder on my laptop, the names of vendors listed neatly like they belonged to another woman's life. This was the lowest point, not because I was alone, but because I finally understood that I had been alone in this relationship for a while. I had been holding the weight of commitment for 2 people, and now that I'd dropped it, my body didn't know what to do with the relief. I felt humiliated, not publicly but privately, for believing him, for defending him, for imagining a future he was actively sabotaging behind my back. But beneath the grief, beneath the shame, something else was forming. Resolve. I didn't know yet what I was going to say to him. I didn't know how the confrontation would go. I only knew one thing with absolute clarity. I would not beg. I would not negotiate. I would not compete with another woman for a man who had already proven he wasn't worth the fight. By the time my phone buzzed late that morning with a message from him, asking if everything was okay, my hands were steady. The worst moment had already passed, and I was still standing. I didn't reply to his message right away. Not because I was trying to punish him, and not because I was unsure. I needed to feel what it was like to sit in the truth without softening it for anyone else. For 4 years, my instinct had been to smooth things over, to give him the benefit of the doubt, to protect the relationship even when it cost me clarity. I wasn't doing that anymore. Around noon, I texted him one sentence. "We need to talk. Can you come over today?" The 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then reappeared. "Is everything okay?" "Just come over," I wrote, 2 o'clock. He showed up at 2:15, like he always did when things were uncomfortable. Slightly late, nervous, careful. He looked at me like he was bracing for impact, like part of him already knew this conversation wasn't going to go the way he wanted. I let him in without a hug, without a smile. We sat in the living room, the same couch where Claire had sat less than 12 hours earlier. The air felt heavy, charged. "What's going on?" he asked, forcing a light tone. "You're scaring me." "Claire came by last night," I said. The color drained from his face. "What?" he said too quickly. "She told me what you confessed at Jess's place. About Natalie. About not being sure you want to marry me. About how this has been going on since January." His hands started to shake. He looked down at them like they had betrayed him. "I can explain," he said. "Don't," I replied calmly. I don't want your explanations. I want the truth. He hesitated. Are you seeing someone else? The pause told me everything. Yes, he whispered. There it was. Simple, ugly, final. And she's married, I added. He looked up, eyes wide. How did you... Doesn't matter, I said. What matters is that you've been lying to me. To her. To everyone. I was confused, he said quickly. The wedding felt like it was happening so fast. I got scared. She made me feel free. Free enough to sleep with her for 4 months, I said, while letting me plan our wedding. He started crying then, apologizing, saying he never meant to hurt me, saying he loved me, saying he didn't know what he wanted. And in that moment, something inside me locked into place. I stood up. I've made the decision for you, I said. We're done. The engagement is over. His head snapped up. What? No, we can work through this. I'll end it, I swear, please. I already paused all the vendor bookings, I continued, 3 days ago. His eyes widened. You what? When you told me to stop talking about the wedding because it made you look desperate, I knew something was wrong, I said, so I protected myself. You can't just do that, he said, panic creeping in. I didn't cancel, I replied. I paused, gave us time. Now we have clarity. He begged, he promised. He tried to negotiate. I waited until he ran out of words. Then I walked to the door and opened it. You should go, I said. This isn't over, he whispered. Yes, I replied, my voice steady. It is. When the door closed behind him, the room felt lighter, not empty, clear. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't confused. I was free. The fallout didn't come with yelling or public scenes. It arrived quietly, in the form of unanswered messages, fractured friendships, and a sudden shift in how people looked at him once the truth no longer stayed contained. For about a week after he left my apartment, my phone lit up constantly. Long apologies, voice notes sent at 2 a.m, promises to end things with her. Claims that he was finally clear now, that he'd made a terrible mistake, that he couldn't imagine his life without me. I didn't engage. Not out of cruelty, out of self-preservation. I had already said everything that needed to be said, and I knew that continuing the conversation would only pull me back into a dynamic where my pain became something to be managed rather than respected. His friends started reaching out next. Jess texted first. She apologized for not speaking up sooner, admitted she'd sensed something was off, but didn't want to interfere. Madison followed, saying he'd been distant for months and she'd chalked it up to stress. Claire checked in regularly, making sure I was okay, reminding me that I hadn't imagined any of it. They didn't take sides at first, but truth has gravity. It pulls people where it belongs. Once it became clear that he'd been cheating since January, that he'd told another woman he was single while planning a wedding with me, the tone shifted. Invitations stopped including his name. Group chats went quiet. Plans changed without explanation. He tried to control the narrative. I heard through mutual friends that he described himself as confused, pressured, overwhelmed, that he framed the affair as a symptom, not a choice. Most people didn't buy it. Confusion doesn't last 4 months. Deception does. His relationship with her imploded 2 weeks later when she found out the truth. Not from me. From his lies finally collapsing under their own weight. She felt used, betrayed, rightfully so. Whatever illusion he'd sold her didn't survive daylight. My family took the news better than I expected. My mother admitted she'd always felt something was off in how he talked about the future. My sister said she'd been worried for a while but hadn't known how to say it without hurting me. Hearing that didn't feel good. It felt grounding. I officially canceled the remaining vendor bookings the following week. I lost some deposits, about $3,000 total. It stung, but not nearly as much as it would have if I'd waited until after the wedding to learn the truth. The venue coordinator thanked me for being upfront. That small kindness mattered more than she probably knew. I ran into him once, accidentally, at a coffee shop. He was with someone new, not the woman from his office, someone else. He saw me, froze, looked like he wanted to say something, then turned and left. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just distance. That's how I knew I'd really let go. 3 weeks have passed since I closed the door behind him and locked it for the last time. Life didn't dramatically transform overnight. There was no instant glow up, no sudden wave of joy that erased everything. Healing was quieter than that. It showed up in small, almost invisible ways. In the way my apartment felt lighter when I came home. In the way my shoulders finally dropped instead of staying tense all day. In the way I could breathe without wondering what version of him I'd get next. People ask if I regret the 4 years we spent together. The honest answer is no. I regret the moments I ignored my instincts. I regret the times I made myself smaller to keep the peace. But I don't regret loving deeply, believing honestly, or committing fully. Those things aren't weaknesses. They're proof that I showed up as myself. What I won't regret is leaving when the truth finally showed itself. He asked for space, and I gave him all the space in the world. He didn't want to look desperate, so I removed the engagement he was embarrassed to claim. He wanted to keep his options open, and now he has exactly that. Options, with none of the security he was clinging to. Meanwhile, I have something far more valuable. Peace. I don't have to decode mixed signals or justify someone else's behavior anymore. I don't have to plan a future with someone who was quietly planning an escape. I don't have to compete with another woman for a man who couldn't choose. The ring is in a drawer somewhere. Maybe I'll sell it. Maybe I won't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm not wearing it, and neither is he. I learned that commitment doesn't make you desperate. Silence doesn't make you patient. And love doesn't require you to accept disrespect just to keep a timeline intact. If someone makes you feel like claiming your relationship out loud is embarrassing, listen to that. If someone asks you to quiet your certainty so they can feel comfortable in their doubt, pay attention. And if someone shows you who they are when they think you won't walk away, believe them. I didn't lose a fiancé. I gained clarity. And sometimes that's the cleanest ending you can ask for.